The Chiefs face the Dolphins Saturday night at 7 p.m. at Arrowhead Stadium in the wild card round of the AFC playoffs. If you don't have plans, join us at Holiday Distillery in Weston for a good old watch party. Food, drinks, we've got them. Beautiful settings surrounded by awesome people. We've got that too. Limited spots are available. More information is coming soon on how to sign up for that. But let's talk about the game and also the one from yesterday, just a little bit today on 10 Things.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hey, what's going on? I'm BJ Kissel with Hayley Lewis. Appreciate you all for watching live or listening to the podcast audio after the fact here on KCSN, the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network now 2 years in a row. And that's because all of you for supporting it and for the entire crew we have putting phenomenal work together. Appreciate everybody. Hit that like and subscribe to show your support. Some local kids trying to build a local company. Hayley,
I like
the
that.
playoffs are here. It doesn't matter that the Chiefs led the league in drops. It doesn't matter that Chris Jones held out. It doesn't matter the refs blew some calls and now that there may be a road playoff game in Patrick Mahomes' future. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
It's the playoffs and anything can happen.
That's true. They said make it to the dance, anything can happen, and they're here. Now they have the chance to prove that everything that was going wrong can be righted with a little bit of momentum, and good old Patty Mahomes, healthy and ready to go. I mean, at least he's healthy. Last year we were freaking out about the ankle and everything going into to playoffs or during playoffs, so it's good to have a pretty healthy team.
Yeah, this is the time of the season where it's like, doubt Patrick Mahomes at your own risk. Doubt Andy Reid at your own risk.
That's a good way of saying it,
This
yeah.
is, last year was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Chiefs. And granted, we've seen problems this regular season that we didn't see last year. We have more concern. There were concerns last year. Let's not rewrite the history there, but it wasn't offensively. It wasn't catching passes. It wasn't the offense not being able to function, but the defense wasn't as good as what we've seen so far this year. And so this is when everybody kicks back up. I feel like we are equipped to be able to say this, that you can tell just from the nature of running a business like this that Chiefs fans kind of just turn it in around Thanksgiving and say, we'll wait for the playoffs. Like, you know what? We're going to get there.
Because they can.
Because they can. And that not wanting to kind of grind through some of those games and watch them and necessarily listen to a bunch of podcasts and consume a lot of videos and social content about a team that's kind of struggling, but you know is going to get to the dance. And then once they get there, it's about putting it together at that point. Again, we've seen some struggles from this team, but now they're in. Anything can happen. And Lego My Ego, appreciate you for hanging out. And he says, with a limping Tyreek and the freezing cold of Arrowhead, I like our chances. We are going to talk about the weather. And we're going to talk about 9 other things to know as the Chiefs get ready to face the Dolphins. And we will spend a little time in the back half of this show talking about the game yesterday because there were some takeaways, looking towards the future and even maybe into the playoffs a little bit, some takeaways from what we saw in the Chiefs' 13-12 win over the Chargers. I meant to look this up. Was that a scoregami? That we appreciate Tucker Franklin for producing this thing as well behind the old scenes. Was that not a scoregami?
I don't think it was.
Okay.
Let me double check.
Maybe it's a pretty common. I don't know what else it's called. Like scoregami, right?
Scoregami, I like that. I haven't heard that.
It's like how many unique scoring games have there been in NFL history? I guess 13-12. It's not completely,
but still an interesting
unique.
one. I gotcha.
Like a 2-0. Like be a very unique football score at the end of a game. But
that has happened 22 times in NFL history.
Okay. When was the last?
Well, 22 over the course of how many games have been played is rare.
So,
I feel like. So
not quite as bad.
We'll support the narrative.
All right. And again, appreciate all for hanging out. Please hit that like and subscribe. Please tell your friends about us. We are trying to make, we as in KCSN, trying to make 2024 our best year yet. We have grown every year. It has been awesome to watch. And again, we appreciate all your support. Whether you're watching live, listen to the podcast, hit the like and subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. All of it matters. All of it helps push new audiences and new people to listening to what we have going on. And the more people that listen, the more cool stuff that we can do, like having the watch party up at the distillery in Weston. So again, if you're making plans and you don't want to go out and sit in almost negative 20-degree wind chill is what's projected for Saturday night and you're in the Kansas City area, come up to Weston, come and hang out at Holiday Distillery. It is by far my favorite place to like hang out and watch a game in the Kansas City area. We'll have food, we'll have drink, get taken care of. But hey, let's get into the matchup right now. And again, check our social channels for information on how to sign up to reserve one of your spots because there are limited spots available up at the distillery. I know you will be there.
Yeah, I will be there.
I will be there.
It'll
Mr.
be fun.
Kent Swanson will be there. along with some other special guests. So we'll have more on that later. But
good crew.
Chiefs getting set to face the Dolphins. Haley, it's a rematch from the Week 9 game back in Germany. Chiefs raced out to a 21-0 lead in that game, as far as a quick recap. They held on to the victory, finishing 21-14, but they did get shut out in the second half. Patrick Mahomes in that game had 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. The leading receiver for the Chiefs in that game was tight end Noah Gray with 34 yards. Travis Kelce had just like 14 yards receiving in that game, so something to look going into this one. Everyone remembers the big defensive play when Trent McDuffie stripped Tyreek Hill, picked up by Mike Edwards, lateral to Brian Cook for the long touchdown return. One interesting note, Dolphins had 2 sacks on that day when Mahomes was under pressure. Both of those guys who had those sacks are now injured, and Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. We'll have more on injuries in a second.
All right.
Chiefs are 4-4 since that game, since beating the Dolphins in Germany. The Dolphins are 5-3.
Okay.
Little quick recap, setting the stage for Chiefs and the rematch against the Dolphins.
I think the big things that I take away from that game in Germany, there was a lot riding on it, right? We were going into it. There were all the storylines. Of course, Tyreek didn't get his homecoming in Arrowhead. Now he gets it. But back then, back in November, which seems like forever ago, we were very concerned with how offensively explosive this team was. So for the Chiefs defense to shut them out in the first half, that was I don't think that should ever, go unnoticed. And I don't think we are, but remind yourself of that as we go into this next one. They were able to do that. They proved before they were able to disrupt Tua. And I think that they showed that they can get to him. Now, of course, we're going to talk about the cold later, how that plays in with the Miami team, but they held him to under 200 yards. And again, the defense continuing to disrupt him, I think, is a big point of emphasis going to this next one. No. How they closed out the game, I remember all of us.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable. I did not like how things went down the stretch. But again, the Chiefs just finding a way to keep their head above water. That's kind of been the storyline this entire season, is just finding a way to win. It doesn't have to be pretty. And they were able to do that in this one. There were some sparks again. That defensive play, love to see it happen, especially because of the Tyreek Hill trade and involving people who got to Kansas City because of that trade.
Yeah.
But those were the biggest things I took away, was the fact that the defense was able to do it before. Can you win twice against a good team in the same season? It's hard to do, but I mean, I hate to bring this up. The Bengals did it to the Chiefs 3 times in the same year. So I think it's plausible, and I like how the momentum's rolling in this for the Chiefs, how they're rested, and a lot of injuries, which we're going to talk about later on the Miami side of things going into this. I feel good about it.
Yeah, and while we're talking about just what these two teams are, and we're going to get into the details, and we're going to get into it all week. And you'll have Only Weird Games and the KC Lab going live today on Monday as we record this show, where they're going to break down, they're going to get into the matchups and all the stuff. At this point in the week, when we're kind of all building up and learning about the opponent and kind of finding our storylines and our contexts that we'll share when we're talking with our friends regarding the game, via group texts and chats and just, hanging out with somebody. And this is going to be something that's talked about a lot throughout the week. The Miami Dolphins against playoff teams this year.
Okay.
They're 1-5. The only playoff team that they've beaten this year is the Dallas Cowboys. They beat them by two points, 22-20, on a last-second field goal from Jason Sanders. The other games that the Dolphins have played against playoff teams, the Buffalo Bills, they lost 48-20. Philadelphia Eagles, they lost 31-17. They lost 21-14 to the Chiefs. They lost also to the Titans, the one non-playoff team. Well, the Titans are kind of in it, but not great. Then they lose to the Ravens 56-19. And they lose to the Bills yesterday 21-14. So
I kind of forgot about all that.
When it comes to, and I remember it towards the end of the year, that people bringing up the fact that the Dolphins are not the same team, particularly offensively, when they're playing really good teams. They needed Tua to play out of his mind at those points.
Sure.
Now, there's context that has to be given when talking about this Miami team, and we're going to kind of go into the next point here, and it kind of blends together. But again, when looking at this Dolphins team, most explosive, we're going to talk about Tyreek and his return to Kansas City in a second too. But this has not been the same team when facing quality opponents. And that's not my opinion. That is strictly, they have played 6 playoff teams and they're 1-5 against them, and their defense given up a lot of points. And that was when their defense was healthy. And moving into the point number 2, these guys are not healthy. This comes from a tweet from Josh Moser, does media down in Miami. He said, Andrew Van Ginkel's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, tells me that x-rays, anybody who knows Andrew Van Ginkel, one of the outside linebackers for the Miami Dolphins, who was injured in their game yesterday against the Bills, said x-rays on his foot are negative. He will now get an MRI, hoping for the best. The Dolphins are now decimated at outside linebacker as Jalen Phillips, who had the Achilles injury, one of their best defensive players, is out for the year. Bradley Chubb, their best defensive player and edge rusher, who came over from the big trade last year with the Denver Broncos, included first-round pick. He was out with an ACL. And then Andrew Van Ginkel got injured yesterday, as did Cam Goody. I think it's Goody or Cam Good. That was the linebacker who got injured and took out one of his teammates in the punt return touchdown that kind of changed the course of the game yesterday. So already down their two best outside linebackers in Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. And then yesterday in their game, losing Andrew Van Ginkel and losing Cam Goody. That is something that is going to be discussed all week, and that it is not the same Miami Dolphins team that is coming to face Kansas City.
So with everything that you said before you even said those injuries, I was already feeling better about Miami coming to Kansas City. Now with that layered on top of it, it's looking like the Chiefs are coming in, not only with the momentum, but the upper hand in this one. And when you look at it, the Chiefs came out pretty clean in the game yesterday against the Chargers. I think here's what Andy Reid said afterwards. He said, Justin Ross came out with a hamstring. Jalen Watson got knee in the calf. I think for the most part, we came out relatively healthy. Now, we saw the rotation on the O-line and a few things going on there, but they rested a lot of their starters, and I think that's a huge leg up when they go into this one, is the fact that they've almost had a little bit of a bye week for the starters who are going to be, facing Miami coming up this Saturday on another short week. A little more on those injuries, though. Wanya Morris, was being evaluated for potential head injury. He was downgraded to out. When Coach Reid talks today, hopefully we hear a little bit more. So he's going to talk today and give the latest injury update. And then I think around like 3 or 4 is when the team puts it out, so we can add to that. Juwan Taylor had a leg injury in the game. He had to shift around. He eventually came back into the game, though. That's when we saw Joe Thuney having to go outside and be a tackle, which honestly, Thuney holding his own against I thought that he did a phenomenal job. But anyway, so pretty thin at tackle with that going on. But so O-line has a little bit of issues going on, but all in all, this team is pretty darn healthy going into this weekend.
Yeah, for Coach Reid to say after the game, knowing that Wanya Morris went down with a concussion, so it sounds like he's going to be going through concussion protocol this week, which is tricky with the game on Saturday.
Right,
they have one less day to have him get through that and clear. You do have Donovan Smith, not sure where he's at health-wise. With his neck that he had been dealing with.
Yes, it was neck.
But he's been resting at least the last few weeks. You can find an update on him. But Juwan Taylor leaving with some sort of leg injury during the game, and then coach saying afterwards that we got out relatively healthy is a great sign. And you brought up rest, and it reminded me on a viral tweet that we saw from Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, put this out a few weeks ago regarding rest and how important it was. It wasn't in context of the Chiefs. This was from about a week ago. This was last Monday. He put this out. But in terms of how important it was that the Chiefs didn't necessarily get a bye, but some of their key players did get to rest in this game yesterday.
Yes.
And he said no team should have to face a schedule like the Chiefs had in 2023, where 5 consecutive opponents in December had extra days to rest and prep, from 10 days to 14 days to 11 days. And then Mitch adds that I get networks want their slot to have the best teams, which everybody wants the Chiefs to be on broadcast. But when you consistently line up, like Mitch says, 5 games in a row where your opponent is getting 3-4 more days of rest than you are, you're in a tough spot. And now the Chiefs are going to be at the other end of it, knowing that their key guys got to rest on a game or on a day. Now the Dolphins had to go out there and play a very physical game against the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
Then they get a short week, so they have one less day for those guys to prepare to get ready for this game. And get healthy. And we even saw Tyreek Hill.
I was about to say, he
at the
was
end of that game,
walking pretty gingerly to the sideline afterwards. And we've also seen Tyreek Hill play for the Chiefs under a lot of distress on his body, and he always seems to come up. But he is 2 years older now, and that's not to say that he's incapable of doing what he's done before. But it is something to note that Tyreek's pretty banged up, and when you shut him down, it seemed like almost yesterday when he was out of reach for Tua. it seemed like they couldn't really get anything going. Now I need to dive more into the film of what happened yesterday. I haven't really done that quite yet, but from watching it, first time watching it through, it seemed like if Tyreek was shut down, they weren't getting anything going.
Yeah. The one thing that you can't shut down is Mission Taco Joint. We need to thank Mission Taco Joint for being the sponsor of this show and supporting us here at KC Sports Network. Mention KCSN at any of the 3 Mission Taco Joint locations in Kansas City on any Tuesday, and you'll get 10% off. And if you grab, if you're in the mood for a cocktail and celebrating a little bit, and you want to grab an any given holiday, they are delicious cocktails there, made with the Ben Holiday Bourbon. If you order one of those, proceeds from every drink will go to support Braden's Hope in their search and desire to continue raising money for pediatric cancer research. They're a phenomenal organization. Please go on their website, learn more about what they do, and know that you can go to a great place, get great tacos, grab a great drink, taste great, and you're supporting KCSN, you're supporting Braden's Hope, all in the process. So we appreciate Mission Taco Joint. Go get some tacos. All right.
Oh, smooth.
Thank you.
I applaud that.
Thank you. I had in my head like 7 different ways I was going to transition it, depending upon what you ended with, and just rolled right into it. I made up for the intro of the show just being awful. All right. You know what? Before we get into the next one, I'm going to surprise Tucker a little bit. We're going to go to a break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about Tyreek Hill's return to Arrowhead and what we think the ovation is going to be like for Tyreek when he steps out on the field for the Dolphins at Arrowhead. We'll be right back after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 10 Things and BJ Kissel hanging out with Hayley Lewis. And all of you fine folks in the chat room, please continue to send us your questions and comments if you're watching live. And we will react to those and bring those up here on the show with Tucker handling things. Jonathan Cook, you are a pro, BJ. No.
Thank you.
I'm sitting next to the pro and the awesome one.
Stop.
I just figure it out as I go. What a segue. Gary, man, we appreciate it. You're just blowing me up a little bit here. Kind of like it.
Gary's
on this
the guy,
Monday
though.
morning.
Gary's always in the chat. Gary's that guy.
We love Gary.
Shout out, Gary. We appreciate you.
Solid listener.
All right, this is going to be a fun one to see what the comments look like. This is going to be a storyline all week. You're going to be talked about it. I'm going to have a YouTube short later with some more research and some more well thought out, produced video about how, at least in my opinion, a lot of Chiefs fans feel about Tyreek Hill at this point. Before I get into my kind of thoughts on, I don't know what the reaction is going to be when he steps out on the field.
I'm curious.
But I know how I feel about it, and it's mixed and it's tough. But I'm curious, what do you think the ovation is going to be like when he runs out on the field?
I think if you were a true Chiefs fan, I know he has talked his crap, but you know Tyreek. That's how he is. It's fun for him. He loves to poke the bear. You see what his banter with Chris Jones and different things, and on Twitter they're constantly just poking at each other. I think as a true Chiefs fan, you have to acknowledge what he did for this franchise, and you have to give him, applause for that. You can't, I know he's talked his crap. He said what he said. He has said some slighted things towards Mahomes, and it does not rub well. But I think it should be a good homecoming. Cheer for the guy, be happy for the guy. But then, at the same time, kick his ass, do what you need to do, get it done, and prove the point, prove that the Chiefs are better. If any team knows Tyreek better than the Chiefs, I would be very surprised. So they know how to shut him down, and they've done it before. Do it again. But I think that you should be happy. I think it's a fun thing. I think that everyone in Chiefs Kingdom should be excited for it. It'll be a fun game.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting to see how they talk about it all week. I don't think he's gonna get booed because he said things that are annoying, but he's never come out and like really gone after or said anything super negative. It's just been kind of annoying in the first year. And so here's my overall thoughts on Tyreek. Like I said, I'll be more organized about this later on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. But
it's early.
Tyreek Hill is the greatest wide receiver in Chiefs franchise history. I know there's a lot of people, a lot of older fans, they're going to stand for Otis Taylor. The late, great Otis Taylor, and not anybody that I watched play. I believe that Tyreek Hill is the most explosive player to step foot on an NFL football field ever. Yeah. You can make the case for Randy Moss. I completely understand that case. I don't think that when you add in his sudden change of direction, I don't think there's ever been a player with that skill set that Tyreek Hill has. he's in that conversation, at least, if we don't want to get caught up on the definitive statements. He's in the conversation as most explosive player in NFL history. Tyreek Hill has the Chiefs franchise record for most receptions in a season, most yards in a season, tied for most touchdowns in a season. He was here 6 years. You look at any of the Chiefs record books, he is near the top. If it wasn't for Travis Kelce, he'd be at the top of a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. And the Chiefs don't win that technically the second Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes without Tyreek Hill. They don't do that. The Wasp, all of that. They're not even in a position. With the 13, all the moments that he has. Everybody talks about the 13 seconds and the play to Travis Kelce across the middle. Only reason they had that ability was because of the crossing route to Tyreek Hill, where he took a very short gain and made it a very long gain. Tyreek Hill is responsible for a lot of the best memories that Chiefs fans have that are caught up in this age of Chiefs football that we've never seen before. It was the high flying, all the yards and all the stuff. That was with Patrick Mahomes. We owe Tyreek Hill a lot, and we should respect what he did on the field for us at that time. The Chiefs, on the other hand, they don't win last year's Super Bowl without trading him, as the point you made earlier with the picks that they got back for him. On top of that, you get Trent McDuffie and Brian Cook, and get it more into it, like I said, on the YouTube later. The other part of this, with him talking about Patrick Mahomes and the slight saying Tua is the most accurate quarterback in the league, Travis Kelce, and I'm paraphrasing over time, different comments that Tyreek has made. Travis Kelce was getting all the targets. I wanted to get the targets. Travis Kelce was invited out to dinner. I wasn't invited out to dinner. Like I wasn't invited over to his house. Like, I don't want barbecue. I want Nobu. All this stuff over time. And even now, the first year after he's traded, it makes sense. He's asked a lot about it. He still talks about it. And it's our fault because he talks about it and then it gets brought up on social and then Chiefs fans just react.
It's kind of like the person who can't stop talking about their ex.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the one who's...
But with him and Mahomes, they made each other a lot of money. And I remember this when they drafted Patrick Mahomes and he got out there and you saw the natural talent. I remember thinking, he's going to make Tyreek Hill a lot of money because of the yards and just how special it was with Andy Reid's ability to put together a game plan and scheme these guys open and put the defense in very tough situations based on the rules they have for the different coverages. Tyreek Hill is a problem anyway, and you put Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes together, it was going to be a thing. Made $500 million. Tyreek Hill became the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history because of his ability to produce with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So, like, that level of respect I don't think is ever going to go away because I think they all know that. Tyreek Hill got what he wanted. He got a Super Bowl. He got paid a lot of money. He's living in a really awesome house that Hope's okay.
I know, what a bummer.
It sucks. But awesome house. Like, he's winning in that way. Like, he got what he wanted. It worked out for him. It worked out for the Chiefs. It's just the constant comments that's just annoying. That I don't think it's enough, to your point, for anyone to boo.
Sure.
But it's enough to just be like, man, can't we just only talk about the good stuff? You don't have to go there and bring that stuff up. You don't have to make the comments about, well, he didn't invite me over and he didn't do it.
There's a point where you're egged on. There's a point where the reporters are asking those questions, and then there's a point where the storylines moved on. And I get what you're saying. I also saw someone, I think it was like Oregon Fishing, or was their title, in the comments saying, we'll be cheering for him all night if he plays like he did yesterday. So I totally agree. Be cheering for him all. Yeah, he said if Tyreek plays like he did last night, he'll be cheered on all game long.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna be talking a lot of trash because I think part of the reason that I loved so much of the Germany game and the play is that Tyreek is mic'd up saying, like, talking trash to McDuffie, like, you've never faced anybody like me. Immediately then the fumble. I don't know if that's just fancy editing, if it actually happened like that.
If it was in order,
If it was not, like, significantly earlier in the game. However, it worked out. Like, it was beautiful.
This is kind of an audible, but who do you think is going to give the most bulletin board material this week? Do you think it's Tyreek? Do you think... I know that Reid shuts that down a lot, but...
I don't think so, and I'd be surprised if Tyreek said a lot.
Really?
To rile up the team.
I think he'll keep talking.
I don't think he's not going to say stuff, but I don't think it's going to be over the line of anything else that we've heard. I think it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. I don't think he's going to lean into it.
Okay, agreed into that,
But at the same time, like, if I were Chiefs fans and he does, like, I wouldn't bait him on social. And if I were the Chiefs, I wouldn't give any reason to wake him up or whatever in that way, because Dolphins are going to be dealing with enough when it comes to the weather. We get into this game, moving into the next point.
Yeah.
Because
it's going to be chilly.
Kansas City, I looked up Independence, Missouri, where Arrowhead Stadium it is, 6 inches of snow expected over the next 48 hours. Recording this on Monday. Snow is going to be cleared off. The grounds crew, they do a phenomenal job. For Saturday night, as of right now, it's a high of 12 degrees, a low of -4, and that's temperature. It's not including a wind chill. When the wind is projected, again, we're 7 days out, or
That
6
is
days
foul.
out. 5 days, I can't count. 15 miles per hour wind. So wind chill looking -18, -20 degrees. That's not going to be fun. That's why you should come hang out with us at the Holiday Distillery. So they win, get another playoff game. We'll talk about AFC
I got
playoff
the
scenarios and how they
chills
still get it. You got the
thinking
chills
about
thinking
that.
about how cold it's going to be. And per Harold Kuntz on Twitter /X, this is a really good note here.
X.
A little good nugget. The Miami Dolphins have lost their last 10 games in games under 40 degrees
Oof.
at kickoff. They'll expect to be in single digits with a negative wind chill Saturday night at Arrowhead. You have the 10 games right there, 10 straight losses when the temperature is under 40 at kickoff. So still above freezing, and we're talking about -18 wind chill.
You think they should buy like a snow machine and bring it into their facility and just ice them out?
Seriously, that could be
know
a
how you
fun
prepare
discussion.
for
What
that.
could the Dolphins do over the next week
I
to
don't
be
know.
prepared? They could fly to like Antarctica and practice.
Yeah, they could. They could.
It's a good use of resources. Just,
Is there a time zone difference there? Do you think? In Antarctica?
No, is it dark all the time there or light all the time there?
It depends on the time of the year, I think.
Okay.
listen, all their passports are updated.
Obviously, I passed geography.
See, we're in Germany.
Third grade. Here's what I also found that I was listening to on 810 when I was coming in on the radio this morning was the coldest game that Tua has ever played in. Now, this has not been vetted out yet, so this is still kind of looming around on the Twitter space, or what do we call it, the X space sphere? I don't know.
I'm just going to call
whatever.
it Twitter because X is weird.
This has to be sourced right now, but what people are saying is that the coldest NFL game that Tua has ever won was in 48-degree weather. It was against the Jets on Black Friday. Of course, remember, he grew up in Hawaii. He attended college at Alabama. Probably the coldest game at any level that he's ever played and won in. This is projected, of course, when Kansas City has a high of 12 degrees coming up. This is via Twitter. Randy Jazzerly, I believe is his name. Give credit to him.
It's Randy on the Royals.
Randy
on the Chiefs
There
right
you
now.
go. For finding that little tidbit. Again, have not vetted that out myself, so hopefully that is legitimate. But if it's true,
Yeah.
and the only game that he's ever won at the NFL level has been at 48 degrees, and then Harold, who I know vets that, so
Yep.
that's true, have not been able to win in games that chilly.
I remember
have to
something
admit the
about
weather's
this
gonna be a big part.
being discussed. And I was talking to Tucker about it before we recorded. That I don't know if it was maybe during like a playoff game that Tua was playing in college or whatever, but I remember it being brought up that
Yeah.
he hadn't played in cold weather. And then I was trying to make sure I wasn't confusing somehow him with Derek Carr, because Derek Carr was awful in cold weather.
Chiefs better check those
Routinely.
balls before the game starts.
But yeah,
Make sure no air has been let out.
yeah,
Make sure they're
and-
hard as rock.
Yeah, and Jalen Waddle, Tyreek's going to play in this game. I know we talked about him being banged up. Jalen Waddle should come back and play in this game after he didn't play in the game yesterday against the Bills. So they've got a lot of speed. The Chiefs let the grass grow a little longer, maybe not cut it quite as short this week. You know, leave the tarp on a little bit, create a little condensation on there. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying it could be slick out there. You never know. Have you heard about those like high school football teams that they're getting
Have
ready
done
for
that?
state playoff game, like way back, and you can't get away with that now. Before social media, they would like
Okay.
flood fields. All of a sudden, it was like puddles
These
of
are
water when they're getting ready to
children.
go out.
Oh
and
my
play.
God.
Listen, I'm not advocating.
Whose
for it. I'm just
booster
saying
father
that
was in
go
charge of
Chiefs.
that?
I don't know.
That's
But
wild.
When we're talking about the weather and the amount of points that could be scored in this game, and it's one thing about what we think, but always go to like, what does Vegas think? What do the sports betting things think? So let's bring in Tucker. Talk about what
Tucker.
Vegas thinks that this game could be, with two offenses that you thought was going to be a shootout. Both offenses kind of struggling down the stretch, and then you add weather on top of it. What does Vegas think, Tuck?
It's going to be interesting. I think I saw this open in some places at 1.5. I think even DraftKings, our friend at DraftKings Sportsbook, had it at 1.5. It's now up to 4 points in favor of the Chiefs, but the over/under is at 44. 44 points for this game. And look, If you want to get in on some of this action at DraftKings Sportsbook, they're an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, and they're bringing you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. As I mentioned, Chiefs 4-point favorites right now when looking at hosting the Miami Dolphins. Here's what you got to do. You got to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
I love when we do this live because you can't
Great job.
speed it up like you do on radio. Sometimes you
sip,
hear like
take a sip.
the fine print being sped up to like
They have the numbers. They have the numbers typed out on this one. They're not the actual numbers, so that's where I got all messed up. As I started reading, I was like, "Wait, have I said that number yet?"
Yeah, you got it though.
Yeah, you did.
I got it. I got
appreciate
it.
you.
Brought it home. Brought it home.
Appreciate DraftKings. Make sure to download the app and use code KCSN when signing up.
44.
Lets people know that you're listening and you're like to bet sports. We don't get a kickback or anything on that. So I think it's important to tell people that, especially when it comes to like sports betting. I also think it's important that we talk about the rest of the AFC playoffs right now, and
What
then
else
we
is
will
going
spend
on?
the last 5. We'll run through them fairly quickly. Takeaways from yesterday's game, but a couple storylines. One in particular I'd like to bring up just because I think it's cool. I get really caught up into storylines, and
No.
the NFL. Yeah. The NFL, it's king anyway, but you add in a couple good storylines, and it's set up to be a really fun playoff, or there could be some really fun playoff matches. When you talk about the AFC playoffs, Baltimore, number 1 seed, obviously getting the bye. Buffalo now is the 2 seed after winning yesterday, facing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are banged up with TJ Watt being out for a couple of weeks. Buffalo banged up. Gabe Davis left the game yesterday early. They've got some injuries, particularly in the secondary, that they're dealing with. And then Cleveland gets Houston, which I think is probably the most intriguing matchup that I'm excited to see because you have Joe Flacco, which is one of the greatest stories going into the playoffs right now, against CJ Stroud, which has been arguably the top, at least
he's
rookie
legit.
storyline for sure, but a top 5 storyline in the NFL with D'Amico Ryans and what he's been able to do his first year in Houston, and then CJ Stroud just playing out of his mind. Just pissing off David Tepper and the Panthers every time he went out there and made plays. Granted, he's got a much better team around him. I get it. But, Haley, we get to see Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams go on the road as underdogs to Detroit in the NFC side. To Detroit, where he spent all of those years in his career giving everything he had. I'm a big Matthew Stafford fan. That dude plays injured. He plays through everything. He gave everything he had to Detroit. They trade him. He leaves and goes and wins a Super Bowl. Now Detroit winning the division for the first time in like 100 years. Like the best season that Detroit has had. There's so much hype around that city.
Yeah.
And now Matthew Stafford's going to come back as an underdog and potentially spoil the best shot they've had to make any kind of run in any kind of playoff situation. It's exactly what you're looking for. And then if that happens, the next week, we could see Joe Flacco going to Baltimore as an underdog with Baltimore's best chance to win since Joe Flacco was the quarterback.
Is this what you tweeted out this morning?
Yes.
Okay, that's what
It's the same thing. I'm just talking about it in more length.
Passionate.
Because this is what I love about football. Seeing Matthew Stafford go back to Detroit, and for Detroit fans just to be stuck in such a weird position of being like, man, we love that guy, but damn it, don't do this to us this year. For him to come back, that would be a really tough position for Detroit fans. They should love Matthew Stafford for what he did. He got a Super Bowl. I love it. And I need Buffalo to win and Joe Flacco and the Browns to beat Houston because I want to see that matchup. The Chiefs would have to win. That way the lowest seed would be Cleveland. They would be going to Baltimore. That's how that would happen. The Chiefs would have to win. Obviously Buffalo would have to win. And so would Cleveland in order for that to happen. But then Flacco going to Baltimore would just be fun to watch.
It's a great storyline. I think that's the only one that trumps, Tyreek's homecoming is Stafford's homecoming. But I'm watching Cleveland, Houston, and then on the other side of it, I'm going to watch Monday Night Eagles. Well, I'm going to watch all of them, but I'm looking forward to watching the Bucks and the Eagles. I just think that's a fun matchup. I think that to be able to see those two teams, I also want to see how the Eagles are doing. Yeah, also, the fact that Baker is still playing is just still always such a baffling thing to me. And I think it's a fun game to watch.
Baker Mayfield. Like, I've always kind of liked Baker. I always
have
thought
too. I liked his commercials.
Even like when he planted the flag and stuff and like grabbed his.
He's spicy.
Jump
I think it's
when they were
interesting.
playing at KU, like when he was in college.
I didn't like that.
I thought all of it was hilarious. Like, he's the dude that when he's on your team, you love him. When you're playing against him, you probably hate him.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good way to say it.
Perfect example of that dude. But for him in Tampa Bay to potentially beat Nick Sirianni's
that's what I'm saying. It's a good story.
Condescending prick ass, like, I'm sorry, but the way that he responded after the Chiefs game to fans and how bad they've been since. They won the game the week after against Buffalo, and then all the losing streaks started. All the karma caught up with him about talking trash and all the things that he's done. And then his post-game presser and just his antics on this.
The fact that we've seen Jalen Hurts pull him in on the sideline before and be like, don't behave that way. Yeah. Like, that's, and Jalen Hurts, as much as like, I don't want to see him succeed against the Chiefs in any realm, is a stand-up, coach's kid, good guy, seems to have a very good moral conscience and character. And for you as a quarterback, having to rein in can you imagine Mahomes trying to rein in Andy Reid? Just it's childish behavior.
It's embarrassing. And
anyways, to your point,
I'm not gonna spend a long time talking about it, but I will be rooting hard for the Bucks. This comes as somebody that bet money on two teams to win the Super Bowl, the Chiefs and the Eagles. I put money on both the Chiefs and Eagles to win the Super Bowl, got them at really good odds, so like I'd get a decent payout. I would still love to watch the Eagles get beat because of the way that Nick Sirianni has acted this year, and particularly the way that he went after Chiefs fans. And granted, he may have been responding to Chiefs fans that were giving him a hard time and all of that, but karma.
We'll see what happens.
There's a song about it.
Yeah.
I don't know the words. I was going to quote it.
Tucker would know it.
In a way that makes sense.
Karma's a guy on the Chiefs. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, there you go. That's Okay. See.
All right.
Pop culture.
All right. Sorry. So more on the playoff situation and matchups and all that stuff. Make sure to check out Only Weird Games. They'll be going live this afternoon at 4:30-ish. Got it.
It's always
4:30, but
if Nate Taylor is involved, it's always going to be an ish.
There's a home. That time. No, it was a road game. Did he try? No. Yeah.
I love that man, but whenever he showed up to the pressers, he would slide in like a minute. I mean, you know this. A minute before Nate arrives, the presser's about to start. Yep. That's when you know it's about to start.
And he'd always stand right next to Coach because there's nowhere else to stand. So he'd just literally be up there like he's Ted saying, next question.
I love him. Anyways.
All right. Got anything for us, Tuck?
No, I was just going to say that last week's show started at 4:45. That's all.
And then the lab will be going. I think the lab's going to pre-record. It'll go out live on YouTube, but I think they're going to record because you got the national championship game.
Big game.
Tonight. Michigan, Washington.
I take Washington. I want Washington.
I like Washington. I'm in the storyline.
I have a bad feeling Michigan might, but I want Washington to win.
Yeah, I don't like Michigan. I have no reason not to like Michigan. I
think they're just drama. That's my only point.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad that if the players get caught up in the scandal, if they didn't know, like, then I kind of understand how they kind of have this chip on their shoulder, and I get that. But Washington, it's just cool and special.
It's a cool story.
I like that, hearing the story about how Washington's head coach and his offensive coordinator go back to Sioux Falls, and that story they said in the last playoff game about how long they've known each other. They're coming up, giving the offensive coordinator an opportunity. I can't remember his name, Tucker, if you know.
OC for Washington?
The OC for Washington was like begging for a job, and like got one from the head coach when, again, he was back at Sioux Falls. This was years ago when they were in like NAIA, but like they've been together for a long time. They stuck together, and they've kind of grown up in this together, some of these smaller schools. It's a cool storyline. Penix, like their offensive line winning the Joe Moore Award. O'Dune's, like, they're so much fun to watch. And it's just different. It's a new team in the mix, which is cool to get caught up into that. And they always play close games. It's going to be awesome to watch.
Ryan Grubb.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's it. All right, anyway. So you got Only Weird Games in Lab tonight to help break down the playoffs. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so breaking down the Chiefs win
Yeah, we should talk
yesterday
about it.
over the Chargers. And I'll start with this one. This is from the Chiefs communication game notes. Appreciate all the hard work that they do for these. Chiefs won 11 games. Chiefs closed out the season with a 13-12 victory over the Chargers, finishing the year with a regular season record of 11-6. The Chiefs have won at least 11 games in each of the past 6 seasons since 2018. Prior to this current streak, the longest such streak in franchise history was 2 seasons. The Chiefs have now won double-digit games in 9 consecutive seasons. That's also a franchise record, and have 10 or more wins in 10 of Andy Reid's 11 seasons leading the club.
Can I give you a Debbie Downer, and then I will go back to being positive? It's just a small Maddie Lane moment. Just give me one little moment. The Chiefs are the lowest seed that they have ever been in Mahomes' era as a 3 seed in the AFC at 11-6. That's also the most losses that the Chiefs have ever suffered since Mahomes has been a starter. Back to the positive. I just think it's interesting.
I don't take that. This is the glass half full. I don't take that necessarily as a positive, because if you're telling me that rock bottom of the Patrick Mahomes era
There you go.
is
See?
the 3 seed,
And now it's spun.
not winning the AFC West division until week 17 as opposed to week 15, like it could have been if the refs didn't miss some calls and we can catch some passes.
There you go.
Because I help.
Yeah, we're on the team too.
Thing.
Anyways.
I say we all the time, and I'm like, we don't really do anything. We just
are
kinda
not a part
cheer
of
from
this
the
team.
outside, but we care.
Anyways, there
Lot.
were lots of positives that we saw. I'm also glad that they won in a game that I was like, it doesn't matter if they win, but I was glad that they won.
Yeah, you want to see the guys go out there and have success, and we'll talk about the 3 like maybe top individual storylines I think coming from this game. Tell me if I'm wrong. I wrote these down. McCole Hardman, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce being the 3 guys.
Yeah.
We'll start with McCole. 11 targets in this game. The next highest player had 4. So coming in this game, I wanted Justin Ross to get like 25 targets, but went to McCole, which, you know what, I'll take that because McCole will play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it was great to see him get some success. He had 6 receptions for 77 yards. Not saying it was all perfect.
No.
One interception
Even Reed
gave
said
up
that
on,
after.
had at least 1 drop that I remember. But it was great to see McCole get his hands on the football and run some intermediate routes down the field. A lot of McCole, at least with the early part of his career, there's a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of the ghost action, and a lot of the orbit action around the backfield. It was kind of like his package play. So for him to, and some deep stuff, nothing really across the middle and like the intermediate range.
Yeah.
And so we saw that, which was a great sign. We'll stay there. Do you have any thoughts on McCole Hardman?
Reed said it afterwards. You know, he had some good moments, also some bad he needs to clean up, and I think that's McCole got out there. I'm glad that he was able to build a little bit of confidence at the end of it, but in the beginning, I was like, oh my god, again. And so anyways.
He got his opportunity, and he made a couple of contested catches. He had the one really nice one across the middle of the field. Organ fishing,
and so
feel
did
bad
Ross.
for Ross. Soft tissue issues seem to keep happening when guys sit for long
He had a really
stretches.
big catch too.
Yeah, you just want to see him get his hands on a football and go out there and like just get some reps. And like, you hear so much about him, and you watch, all these highlight reels and shorts during OTAs, and you want to see something translate or something to kind of get excited about, which we'll talk in a minute. Justin Ross being one of those players. LaMarco P. Ryan is a player that we should talk about.
Yeah,
to the future, but for the present, Chris Jones got a present.
Yeah, he did.
In this game.
A big old present.
And I think it was funny as I was at the Kingdom Bar watching this game, watched most of the game while I was there, and no one was really cheering like a 3rd down conversion, a big stop on defense, unless it was Chris Jones getting near the quarterback.
Yeah.
Everyone in the bar knew about the incentive. I think everybody in Kansas City knew about the incentive. And it was fun on social because there were a lot of people rooting for it, being like, this would be awesome, get him his money. There were a lot of people being like, F that guy, he sat out. If he would have played in the week 1 game, we wouldn't be in this position, and a lot of those kinds of takes.
Sure.
I understand the frustration, but at the same time, like, that's in the past. At this point, I'm going to celebrate Chris incentivized to go out there and make plays, and he did. Yes, he risked getting hurt to go and get that and potentially putting himself and the team in a bad position. But he made decisions about himself personally and financially going into this season that continued on. He had a right to try and hit the incentives that he had negotiated for by holding out. And I was ecstatic to see him get it. I thought the reaction was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought everything about Chris Jones getting that sack and getting his $1.25 million was awesome.
I think that we could spend an entire hour talking about this, talking about what his agents tweeted out, talking about the ins and outs of everything. But we'll keep it simple, just off the top. His team's reaction is all that you need to know about how the Chiefs locker room, not the front office, how the Chiefs locker room and coaching staff feels about Chris Jones. That is all you need to know right there. And I was thrilled to see it for him.
I saw Josh Briscoe tweet this out, and I don't know if they talked about it. I didn't get a chance to listen yet to the postgame show. But when he tweeted about Clark Hunt and about the Chiefs organization potentially stepping in and paying out his incentive without him playing. And there's precedent that some teams have done that before. I know some people said Joe Flacco got $75,000. That's not $1.25 million. But it is interesting to bring up, is there precedent with the Chiefs of ever having done that? Because then you get into an issue, looking at it from the Chiefs' point of view, you do that for him.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line on this guy's got a playtime incentive of hitting certain percentage of snaps or even some of the smaller milestones and incentives in these contracts? So I get the drawing a black and white line, but I did think it was interesting with all the fans talking about he shouldn't be in this position.
That again, we could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway was the fact that you see a guy like Isaiah Pacheco who will never even make half of that in his rookie year or his rookie contract, screaming and cheering and hyping him up. Every single person in there was happy for one of the most paid players on their entire team and cheering. You know what I mean? Like a guy who's getting a huge incentive, probably half of what or more than what a lot of those guys will ever make on that team.
The people that are around him every day have that
We're
reaction
still cheering
to
for him.
getting paid, and the people that have the opposite reaction are people that aren't around him.
I think that's a good way of leave it there. Leave it there.
But we're not going to leave it there because one of the things that I love was after the game, Chris Jones interviewed, and we have
this
that.
is good. This
and
is
Tucker's
good.
going to run it. I thought this was a great interview from Chris Jones after the game.
Okay, Chris Jones, tell us, how does it feel to be $1 million richer?
Oh, it feels amazing, right? I lost so much money holding out. So I'm just making money back that I lost, honestly. So it feels good.
All right, but I'll tell you the truth. When I was walking into halftime with head coach Andy Reid, he didn't seem like he was ready to throw you back out there to get that last half sack. What was the negotiation to let him let you play?
The last drive, he gave me the finger as in, this is the last drive. I had to beg him coming off of this because the play before that, we got the TFL, and I'm looking at him hollering, one more drive, coach, one more. He gave me the finger, one more, and I'm like, I'm praying to God. While I'm walking out, I'm like, God, please let me get it. This is the last one, and God is good.
You should have offered Easton Stick a little bit of money.
Oh, man, he just went down, right? And, I got to send him flowers or something, man. Such a good sport.
All right, Chris, very seriously, though, as this team heads into the playoffs right now, what's the most important thing in getting hot, in feeling like, okay, we're ready for a run?
I think defense, we got to continue to hone in on what we've been doing a good job at. We've been minimizing big plays, creating turnovers, and we finally got a score in the end zone, man. We've been harping on that all year. Get a score, finally scored. Just continue to hone in. The offense will get going. We know what type of atmosphere Kansas City bring in the playoff, and we're excited for it.
Chris, last one. Miami or Pittsburgh? Who'd you rather have?
Either or. Pittsburgh, though. I see Miami Nets, so I love to go to Miami Nets, right?
All right, then. Chris, thank you, and have a safe flight home.
Take care.
Lots of love about that interview, Haley. I appreciate CBS for doing that and getting a very open and honest Chris. But I think adding the context to Andy Reid and the communication on the sideline of getting one more drive, one more shot, and then kind of begging for it in the second half. I think maybe it's part of the reason that the sideline reacted the way they did is they knew that was like his last chance.
Yeah, it was exciting. You saw Reid over there and Jones almost begging like, Dad, one more try, like one more 5 more minutes of video games. And he's like, this is it. This is your last try. And then to go out there and get it done. And then everyone, of course, erupting and being just so excited for him. That made me happy about going into the playoffs with a cohesive unit like that because I think that was a big point or question early on when those dramatics were happening. Good to see that everyone seems to be in good spirits.
Yeah, love to see it. Another thing we love to see was one guy not on the field, and that was Travis Kelce.
Yeah, sad but happy.
As much as a lot of us wanted to see it just because it's fun to talk about and the streak and the 1,000 yards and all that stuff, I did think it was, I don't know if it was coincidental or just happened to work out. Like it just happened to work out that way, or if Andy Reid and the Chiefs were watching the Lions game and saw Sam Laporta go down with an injury.
Yeah, I don't know.
In a game that, at least for the Lions, could have affected them a little bit, but still losing a key player, even as a rookie at that point. It was like 2 minutes after Sam Laporta got injured that the Chiefs tweeted out, like, Travis Kelce's not playing in this game. Not upset about it. I'm more excited that Kelce got some rest.
Yeah.
That he will be fresh going into this game, again, going up against a very banged up Dolphins defense.
I think that we hear Kelce say all the time he doesn't care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe he really doesn't. I mean, and do I blame him for that? No. I'd rather have him be healthy and win a Super Bowl ring than get 16 yards and make his 8th straight historical 1,000 receiving yard season.
We're going to combine the next two and just young players that stood out in this game against the Chargers. B.J. Thompson, number 53, very skinny. I tweeted out that B.J. Thompson had some good reps, and everyone just talked about how skinny he is to play that role. But he's got some juice. If you've watched any highlights of him, if you know anything about B.J. Thompson, he is a toolsy, quick twitch, long, athletic edge rusher. And to see that skill set translate into making plays, Steve Spagnuolo can work with that. He can work with that body type. He can work with that athleticism. He's going to have a chance this offseason to kind of change his body a little bit. But just to see a player with that athletic ability kind of have some level of production and success was awesome to see. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, a lot of people talking about him coming to this game. Thought he flashed and made some plays in what was his most extensive playing time of the season. Shamari Connor, I know they gave a shout out to him on the post-game show last night. Thought he did really well. Cam Jones, the linebacker, number 44, I think he led the team with tackles, and he had 12 tackles. He was all over the place for the defense. And then offensively, I mentioned him earlier, but LaMichael Pirine.
Good to see him back.
109 yards on 24 touches. This guy is just 25 years old. He's played in 17 career NFL games. And the reason that I think for LaMichael Pirine, why it was so important for him to get those reps, is you need 3-4 running backs on your roster.
He's fighting for a spot.
He's fighting for a roster spot, not just for the playoffs and to potentially play this year, but for next year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a free agent. Jarek McKinnon is a free agent. We know Pacheco's going to be here. But for LaMichael Pirine, this could have been a really good opportunity for him to show, hey, I can be one of those three. He's not going to be Pacheco, but he can be one of those guys that's on the roster that just kind of hangs around and creates a nice little role and a little career for himself here. And I thought he did a great job to earn that spot to compete.
Yeah, I was happy to see him. Get what he did on the field. It was really funny. I was watching at Minsky's, and someone at the bar was like, "What did they say?" They called him like Pirine, and they're like, "Go Pirine!" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna start calling him that. Go Pirine."
I'm getting a habit of mispronouncing all of the running backs' names. I say Pacheco, like everybody lets me know. I can't say it.
And the guy who was saying it meant to. I mean, he was solid with that pronunciation. I loved it. I was like, "Go for it, man!" Like.
All right, let's run through some fun records to note from this game as we wrap this show up, and then we'll take a couple of questions here at the end. I got about 5 more minutes to wrap this thing up. Fun records from the Chiefs win over the Chargers. Creed Humphrey
this one's cool.
51 with a start at guard today. Creed Humphrey has started 51 consecutive games since he was drafted in 2021, tying him with Art Still for the third most consecutive starts to begin a career in Chiefs history. And then I'm going to roll right into the next one because as soon as the play happened, I remember thinking that's like half his career sack. So Charles Omenihu got the big sack, the big play early in this game for the Chiefs defense as the Chargers got the ball to start the game, went all the way down the field, just about to score. Yeah. Charles Omenihu gets the strip sack fumble, get the ball back to the Chiefs, and they run it back for a touchdown. And the defense has to get back out on the field when they're it was early in the game, so probably weren't tired, but like just drove down. You score, you have to go right back out on defense. But the forced fumble was Omenihu's second of the year and fifth of his career. And Omenihu's had an effective first season with the Chiefs, setting single season highs for himself in total tackles, solo tackles, and sacks with 7, tying his previous single season high for passes defense and forced fumbles. I think Omenihu made his first start of the season, and I don't.
Yeah, minus how many games? Like 6?
Yeah, I don't. So much of starts have to do with formations and personnel groupings nowadays that I don't follow that stuff quite as much. But do think it's interesting that Charles Omenihu had a name coming into this season. He was a guy that had some success. He has 18 career sacks. 7 of them have been almost half of his career sacks have been in Kansas City. Steve Spagnuolo, it has been a great combination for those guys.
Yeah, I loved when Omenihu was brought to Kansas City because he was a young guy, but also a guy who brought a ton of pressure, but you didn't necessarily see it in terms of sacks. And so now for him to be able to put that in his stat sheet, I think is great. He's been providing so much pressure in addition to the edge as well. So, and hopefully that just continues in the playoffs.
And talk about Omenihu and talk about the defense in general. The last nugget that we have, again, this is from the Chiefs communications department. Haley, do you want to read the last one? This is a cool one.
Yeah,
regarding
Chiefs,
the defense.
Defense shutting down opposing offenses in the second half of games all season long. After allowing only 6 points in the second half of yesterday's game, the Chiefs defense ended the year allowing just 120 total second half points, the fewest in the entire NFL. Now that is a good point. It also ties the 2014 Chiefs for the second fewest points allowed in the second half and overtime in franchise history, trailing only the 1997 unit who surrendered just 91 points in the second half / overtime.
That when you talk about playoffs and
good.
talk about Mahomes and the offense, everybody's so caught up in that. These are the things where it's like this defense has been really, really good. Not throughout the year, but especially into the second half. And then you get Steve Spagnuolo in the playoffs. We've seen it before, dialing it up. He's going to be coming after Tua. We know they're going to come after Tua. The ball's going to be out of his hands. You do not want to give Tyreek Hill 4 seconds to run a route. You know what that could look like. The best chance you have is to get the ball out of his hands quickly and then go up and make a tackle. And maybe you can force a turnover. And we talked about how important that will be for this Chiefs team this year, needing to win the turnover battle and needing to get some short fields and maybe some easy points. Easiest way to do that with Steve Spagnuolo, he loves to send the house, do the cover zero stuff. Do that, maybe step in front of a pass, gamble a little bit, and make a play. But as we wrap this show up, if we have we get a couple of comments if we got anything, Tuck, or any questions, but we appreciate everybody for hanging out. Lego Mago, thoughts on Commanders to interview Mike Borgonzi?
Yeah.
Did breaking news when we were on this show. Hope they don't get another one of our coaches. We'll end on this one. This is a good one. You have any thoughts on Borgo? I thought Mike Borgonzi was one of my favorite dudes.
I didn't have much interaction with him, but I've only heard great things every time. The one thing I do find interesting about this is I haven't heard EB's name come up at all yet.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's not? No, I just haven't heard it yet this morning. So
I hope that becomes part of it. There's a lot of talk about people in Kansas City, and I hope EB comes back. I don't, because I want him to get a head coaching job.
No, I want him to get the head coaching
I want him to get a head
yeah.
coaching job. I want him to get paid. But for Mike Borgonzi, it's an awesome opportunity for him.
Yeah.
It was an awesome opportunity for Ryan Poles to get the opportunity
Absolutely.
in Chicago.
And
I was surprised that
he's done a great
Ryan
job.
Poles got the opportunity before Borgo did. They're both deserving of it. But with all the success the Chiefs have had, Borgo's been here since before the Andy Reid era. He was here during the Pioli Castle era. But for that guy, for him, his wife Jill, their whole family, they're amazing people. He's phenomenal at what he does. For a young person who had no idea what he was doing, felt like an imposter the entire time I worked there. Mike Borgonzi could not have been nicer or a better dude, and be very, very good at what he did at the same time. He runs that. Draws that line really, really well, being able to be helpful without giving everything away, but also just being a normal, good dude. So shout out Mike Borgonzi for getting that opportunity. Hope he gets that job, and if not that one, another great opportunity for him and his family. He is definitely deserving of it. You all are deserving of a lot of more great Chiefs content throughout the week, so make sure to stick here to KC Sports Network as we will have you covered, getting ready for the Chiefs and Dolphins in the wild card round of the AFC playoffs. Appreciate you all for hanging out. Make sure to subscribe, like, review, all that good stuff, and see us at the distillery.
Yep, we'll
on
see you
Saturday
there.
night. Make
Fun
sure to
game.
RSVP. Should have a good time. Tucker's going to be there too. Maybe he'll chuck a seltzer with you. We'll see you next time.